Thank you. Good afternoon. Can you all hear me? Yeah, good. Well, after all that, I don't know what else is left to say. But in case you don't know of the Coalition for Nonviolence, it's made up of community members here in Dubuque who come together to address the crisis of weapons of violence in order to create a more peaceful and nonviolent community. Violence against women is not new, but what is new is the increasingly weaponized society in which we live, which, combined with the intolerance and outright hate shown women, people of color, members of the LGBTQ community, and those who are Muslim, is a lethal and has become a lethal combination. It's created a climate of fear, a climate of violence, and that has the effect of keeping those who are on the receiving end of it down and focused on survival, instead of being empowered to be full participants in society. Think about it. Who benefits from this? Clearly, those who have traditionally held the power and are unwilling to relinquish even a bit of it are the ones who are vested in keeping things as they are. I'm just going to throw out a few facts and statements. Some may be familiar to you, some may not. And I want to start with a quote from Margaret Atwood. Men are afraid that women will laugh at them. Women fear that men will kill them. I'm going to say that again. Yep. Men are afraid that women will laugh at them. Women fear that men will kill them. American women are 11 times more likely to be murdered with a firearm than women in any other developed nation. 11 times more likely. Unfortunately, gun violence is a women's issue. Did you know that there are 41 states that don't require those prohibited from purchasing a firearm due to domestic violence charges to give up the firearms they already own? Or that half of those killed by their partners are killed by guns. Over the past 25 years, more intimate partner homicides in the U.S. have been committed with guns than with all other weapons combined. And people with a history of committing domestic violence are 5 times more likely to subsequently murder an intimate partner when a firearm is in the house. It won't surprise you, or perhaps it will, that 80% of those killed by firearms by their intimate partners are women. But we have to go beyond talking about violence towards women as solely domestic violence, because it's something that we find across society beyond household, families, and partner violence. And it reflects often the discrimination that we see in this country towards those who are not part of the dominant culture, and that has been just increased in the last year. Women of color and transgender women are disproportionately affected by gun violence. For example, African American women only make up about 13% of U.S. women, but comprise about half of female homicide victims. In terms of the transgender community, at least 26 transgender people were killed in violent crimes in the United States in 2017, making it the deadliest year for the trans community in recent years, according to the Human Rights Campaign. All but 2 of those 26 were transgender women of color. In the past year, discrimination against transgender people has been part of the agenda of our current administration. In August, Trump proposed a ban on transgender individuals entering the military, and Attorney General Jeff Sessions issued a memo in October reversing workplace protections for transgender employees. It's not surprising then that we're seeing the kind of discrimination that is having a lethal effect in our country. There are laws that do protect lives. Some of them have been effective, but they are not across the board. In states that require background checks for all handgun sales, there are 38% fewer women shot to death by intimate partners. But we know that these laws are not applied equally amongst all groups. We know that there are loopholes and that they are not always enforced. And so we continue with the problem of lethal violence against women. Every town, the organization Every Town, has talked about 4 gaps in the law that are particularly problematic. First, federal law does nothing to keep guns out of the hands of abusive dating partners or convicted stalkers. Second, in 35 states, state law does not prohibit all people convicted of misdemeanor domestic violent crimes and all people subject to restraining orders from buying or using guns. That's in 35 states. Third, federal law, and the law in most states, allows domestic abusers and stalkers to easily evade prohibitions by purchasing guns from unlicensed and private sellers. And lastly, as I mentioned, 41 states do not require all prohibited domestic abusers to relinquish the guns they already own. And I understand that here in the Midwest, we're raised to believe that it's normal to have a firearm at home, and that may make us sympathize with those who want very little regulation of gun ownership. But in a society in which we have so much violence against women, so much violence against people of color and against members of the LGBT community and Muslims, can we really afford to have guns so readily available to all? The statistics say that we can't. Clearly, we must work towards a peaceful and loving society instead of one that is full of hate and violence. For many of us, that starts with getting rid of the leadership of this country that thrives on hate and division. In the short term, we must also make it more difficult for those who do hate to get access to firearms. We can't let the NRA-supported Trump administration try to intimidate us through fear and violence. Thank you.